o'clock news.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this Tuesday evening. I'm Natasha Chughtai. We start tonight with a brutal attack on an elderly man. Police say they're looking for 3 young men in the Eugene area who allegedly attacked a 59-year-old with a baseball bat. Alyssa Harrington explains.
These mailboxes by the corner of Roosevelt Boulevard and Lassen Street in Eugene were early Monday morning the scene of a grisly attack on an elderly man. Around 1 a.m., the 59-year-old from Eugene was walking home when approached by 3 young men. He says they asked to bum a cigarette and then quickly surrounded him and beat him repeatedly over the head with a baseball bat.
The only characterization on age that he could provide was that they looked too young to buy cigarettes. He managed to stumble home where a roommate ended up calling or taking him to the hospital for medical treatment.
It was actually that hospital that notified police, leaving detectives to connect the dots, trying to make sense of a possible motive with so far no witnesses and little information. The assailants did not rob the man. Nothing was taken, not even his fanny pack filled with credit cards, and the only evidence at the site were the victim's broken eyeglasses and his walking stick. But the victim was black, the 3 attackers white. Police aren't rushing to call this a hate crime, but say it's a possibility.
There isn't any outward indication from him that it was racially motivated. The only thing that draws to that conclusion is the lack of any other apparent motive.
And because the attack was so brutal, asked the public to please come forward with any information.
This gentleman is extremely fortunate to be alive, given the extent of his injuries.
I'm Alyssa Harrington in Northwest Eugene.
If these men are caught, they could face first-degree assault charges and possibly attempted murder. Now, police didn't actually know about the alleged assault until the hospital contacted them hours after it happened. They told us the victim was in such bad condition, it took a while to figure out where it even happened. We walked through the neighborhood today looking for witnesses or anyone with information. No one saw a thing. But the people we talked to say violence in that area doesn't surprise them. A few told us they saw police combing the neighborhood Monday afternoon.
One just knocked on the door, that's all I noticed.
What do you think of this neighborhood?
It's getting very bad.
Other neighbors we talked to told us about how police showed up at a local market Monday evening. We checked with Eugene police. They tell us that incident was unrelated. Guilty, that's the verdict for the woman who killed 2 Eugene Symphony members while driving intoxicated. The jury deliberated for just over an hour to find Fivea Sharapov guilty of 2 counts of manslaughter, assault, and drunk driving. This morning, both attorneys gave their closing arguments as Sharapov wiped away tears and sobbed openly in court.
She went to an 8-hour class on the dangers of drinking and driving. And it wasn't just a boring lecture where people just get up and talk. These are real-life victims, family members of people who have lost loved ones, telling their story.
On the defense's side, the attorney argued Sharapov should face lesser charges because she didn't have intent to kill. Now, following the verdict, people from both Sharapov's family and the family of the victims had emotional statements to make. Danae DRC joins us now with more. Danae.
Natasha, the courtroom was full of tears from both sides. Sharapov found guilty, also had words for the Lane County prosecutor. A sad day for everyone involved in this case. For Fivea Sharapov, who won't see her children for a long time, and for the victims' families, who will never see their loved ones again.
16 months tomorrow to the date of the accident. We've experienced a wedding in our family. Last December, our youngest. 3 days from now, our son graduates from college. And at all these events, and every event, in the future, Angela will not be there.
I'm thrilled. You know, it's accountability and it's justice, and it was, I think, the right verdict. It was the right charges, and it's it's justice for Angela and Kirsten, and it's what she deserved.
Closing remarks today were powerful, with the Lane County prosecutor using a model to show the fateful route Sharapov took going the wrong way on I-5.
But yet she keeps going. Down to here where the crash occurs. Ladies and gentlemen, that is absolutely evidence of intoxication.
I mean, there's numerous people that have done the same thing during daylight and not being under the influence. So I think that should have been brought into consideration.
Sharapov's sister believes the conviction of manslaughter charges is too severe and says now 3 children are without a mother.
It's sad because she won't be there for them, and somebody else is going to have to take care of them now.
Following a tearful goodbye with her partner, Sharapov has words for the prosecutor.
I hope you're happy, Mr. Martini. Are you going to bed?
No one was happy in this courtroom, but the families of victims Angela Svensson and Kirsten Oquist feel that at last justice has been served.
Sharapov will be sentenced on June 24th. I'm Danae D'Arcy. Back to you, Natasha.
Very emotional. Thank you, Danae. Many are curbing their driving to save gas, but that's not an option for people who commute long distances for work. Since gas prices started climbing this year, interest in van pooling programs has jumped dramatically. LTD coordinates van pools between Eugene and Corvallis and Eugene and Salem. Riders pay a monthly fee, $115 for the Corvallis route. So van poolers save on gas and on carbon emissions.
Gas costs for commuting are anywhere between $350 and $400 a month. Adding in wear and tear on your car, it can get up as high as $800 a month. And that's, we save that by driving.
Current van pools are full, but LTD needs just 5 riders, one willing to drive to set up another van. If you're interested, call 682-6100. Well, hold that tomato. Several fast food restaurants are doing just that after federal health officials linked it to a salmonella outbreak. More than 100 people in at least 16 states have fallen ill. Ileana Varela reports.
Once again, in areas of the U.S., people are getting sick from the food they eat. This time it's tomatoes, and so far, the Food and Drug Administration has no idea how it started.
We have to recognize that the complexity of this may be such that we may not be able to pin it down to a specific field or a specific location. But we're working towards that.
Today, the commissioner paid a personal visit to an FDA lab in California, where foods like these tomatoes are being tested.
It may be a matter of days, a few days, before we have enough evidence to be able to make a conclusive statement about that source, or it could be perhaps longer than just a matter of a couple days.
In 2002, we told this administration to give us country of origin labeling. At least we would know these tomatoes would have people sick in 16 different states with salmonella. We'd at least know if they were grown here in the United States.
Across 16 states from California to Connecticut, there have been 145 tomato-related salmonella cases, including about 24 hospitalizations since mid-April. Salmonella can cause fever and acute intestinal distress. The tomatoes in question, raw, red plum, red round, and red Roma tomatoes. The FDA's investigative approach here is to work backwards from illness outbreaks, determining first where the tomatoes are not from.
We're seeing FDA do instead, by announcing the places that the tomatoes are not from, is essentially they're looking for a needle in a haystack, but instead of holding up the needle, they're holding up all the hay and saying, this is not the needle.
The FDA recommends that restaurants stop serving sliced raw tomatoes. Louise Schiavone for CNN, New York.
Now to vote 08. There'll be one less candidate on Oregon's November ballot. John Frohnmeyer is quitting the race for Senate. Frohnmeyer, an associate professor at Oregon State University, was running as an independent for the Senate seat held by Republican Gordon Smith. But Frohnmeyer says 8 months after declaring his candidacy, he's not getting enough funding or grassroots support.
To run competitively, I would have at least had to have money in the millions, and both because of my aversion to fundraising and because of the nature of running as an independent, that money was not going to be there.
Frohnmeyer says he's not going to be at a loss for things to do. He has a musical comedy to revise, and he's going to get back into competitive rowing. A Canadian waitress loses her job for trying to help cancer patients. It has a lot of people in Toronto angry. Stacey Fearnall was one of 30 people who shaved their heads in a fundraiser for the Canadian Cancer Society. Her boss at the restaurant urged her not to do it, and when she did,